we are on the air. This is the Goffstown Budget Committee on January 6, 2026. We are going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we're going to start with roll call. Jared, why don't you start?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jared Talbot, School Board Rep.
Elizabeth DeBrule.
Samantha Kearns.
Richard Manzo, Select Board Rep.
Peter Grigorokakis.
Rich Gerald.
James Piercy.
Allison DeCesare.
Israel Carey.
Joe Alexander.
Laura Stevens.
Mark Renaud, Village Water Precinct. Brian Mazer.
Olivia Welch-Erdahl is excused, and I have not heard from Doug. Is anybody, I'm going to hope he's okay, but I haven't heard from Doug. And is that everybody? I think that is. Okay. All right, public comment. Is there anyone for public comment? All right, moving on, we are going to do special warrant articles. Okay, town is up first. Derek and Danielle, you guys want to? So we have a handout here.
We have a handout and we've got extra copies if anyone didn't receive.
No, that's fine.
So we have 4 appropriation articles to present this evening, but we'll try and be respectful of your time. The first one is we do have a tentative agreement for a 3-year collective bargaining agreement with the DPW Teamsters. This covers 24 positions at DPW, and you have them listed on slide 2. On slide 3, you can kind of see what we were aiming for in this round of negotiation. We did want to maintain equitable wages and benefits, and we really looked at that 50th percentile of southern New Hampshire communities. We also looked at NHDOT and what they're offering. Those are really our largest competitors for this group. We did, so we do have wage changes. We basically adjusted the matrix by 5% in the first year with no steps. Steps in the second year, no wage, no matrix adjustment. And in the last year, it'd be a 2.5% matrix adjustment and steps. We also compressed. We saw that our wage matrix, our bottom was pretty good, but our top was getting a little heavy, so we actually compressed it. Instead of 4% steps between for each year, we reduced that down to 3.5% between steps. So we kind of brought the top line down a little bit. In our contract with DPW, we do have differentials for different certifications, and we increased our CDLA differential from $1.50 to $2.50. This is primarily to encourage those employees to seek out that licensure, so that gives us a little bit more flexibility with moving equipment around at DPW and on the roads. And then also to add in a weighmaster, so we can ensure that the scale is always operational, because that's how we receive our revenue. If we don't have somebody that's a certified weighmaster, we can't be charging for people as they go across the scale.
Do we pay for them to get that enhanced
part of
license?
it, yep, it's a part of
Because there's a
our-
pretty big fee, as I remember.
What's that?
There's a pretty big expense to getting that.
No, I don't think they're that expensive. And then when we help people get their CDLBs, we actually have in-house trainers that do the
Okay.
training in-house. So they're not. It's really the time that we have to get them to the classes and any prep work that they need to do for that.
Okay.
We did make a reduction. This group does have high deductible. One of their options is a high deductible health care plan, and we reduced the employer contribution into the health savings account. We made modifications to sick bank and sick leave, and then we also negotiated language in for automatic vehicle location units. Those are GPS units and our cameras. On slide 3, you kind of see what our cost calculations are in the 3 years of the contract. In 2026, the estimated tax rate impact, so in 2026, this will be adding an appropriation of $47,200 $20, which has an impact to the tax rate of about 1.7 cents. So for the median single-family resident, that'll be an increase of about $7.08 on their bill. And then just on slide 5 is the language that we'll be using on the article. But I'd be happy to answer any questions people might have.
Questions, anyone?
How many employees sign up for the high deductible healthcare plan?
Currently, we don't have any. We try and encourage them. This is a little bit younger group, but currently we don't have anybody in this group that takes advantage of that plan. We do have some employees in other groups or non-union that do take it.
Okay. That's it.
Okay. Think we can move on?
All right. On slide 6 is our request to deposit into the fire apparatus capital reserve fund. This is to be funded from unassigned fund balance, the amount of $350,000. Sorry, I didn't put that on this slide, but it's a $350,000 deposit into that. The current balance at the end of the year was just north of $1.1 million. And we've gotten actually a pretty good return on this. This money we hold in the Public Deposit Investment Pool. Okay, and just need to make sure I get my acronym correct. PDIP. We earned just over $44,000 of interest in that account, which is, it's got a yield of about 4.3% this year. So it's good to have that money set aside and put that in annually. As you can see here, planned replacements we have in 2026 would be Fire Engine 3. That was purchased in 2005. And then we've got Tower 1 and Tanker 1 coming up in the next 7 and 8 years. On page 7, the fire department, as part of their CIP presentation every year, does provide the CIP committee with a 20-year matrix showing the current age of all their apparatus, as well as their vehicles that are in their annual fire budget, as well as the EMS budget. So what you can see there is what we have for engines, the tanker, and the tower. Those are the 5 apparatus that come out of this capital reserve fund, and when they're slated for replacement.
So if we hand this out at the public hearing or at deliberative, could it be updated so it doesn't look like we're buying, since we're not buying the boat this year?
Yeah, we can definitely make an adjustment on that, as well as Car 2 as we purchase that out of 2025. Yep, we can.
That would be great.
Yep, we can make those adjustments. This was from what was presented to CIP. And then on the next, on page 8, just kind of a history of the Fire Apparatus Capital Reserve Fund, the balance, deposits, as well as disbursements. As you can see here, in 2024, we did make a change where we had an article to fund this from new property taxes, and that failed. So in 2024, there was no deposit made into the Capital Reserve Fund, but in 2025, the article was to fund it from unassigned fund balance. That was approved by the voters. And that gives us our current balance. And if we continue at this level and we have the projected costs of our engine replacements and towers, we'll have to see what we're going to do in 2030. But as we have the new fire chief coming on board here, we'll have to see if we need to change how long we keep apparatus, how much we deposit into it. But that's a few years out at this point.
So we have just enough to purchase in the fund already to purchase what we're going to buy in 2026. So this deposit would go towards the 2030, and we would have not enough to meet that 20, if we kept it at 350.
So this also doesn't assume, I have not assumed any interest being, this is zero interest, this projected amount. So it is a little bit, it's not as bleak as it looks here. It's a little bit better, but yeah, whether it's looking for grants, or when we did purchase the tower, 15 years ago at this point, that was a FEMA grant that paid for a big chunk of that. So it'll be whether it's through grants or other opportunities to see if we can bring that cost down, or if we need to start depositing a little bit more money in the future.
Okay, or shifting it out a year or two.
Yeah, yep.
Okay. Okay.
what, do you know what the current interest rate on that money is?
So it changes day to day
Oh.
and month to month. In 2025, our interest averaged 4.27%, but it dropped a little bit this last month, just under to 4. But it's a very attractive
Yeah,
rate that we get
that's
from
great.
PDIP.
Earlier in the year, we were up around 5, so it just ebbs and flows with the market.
Okay.
And then on slide 9, you'll just see the actual warrant language that we want to use. Again, this is coming from fund balance, and we believe that, just to say that no new amount to be raised by taxation.
Any other questions? Okay. Moving on.
All right, on slide 10 is a new, this is an establishment and deposit into a Goffstown Public Library Capital Reserve Fund, and it would be from unassigned fund balance. So this would establish the Capital Reserve Fund, make an initial deposit of $50,000 from unassigned fund balance, and seek to name the library trustees as agents to expend. This is primarily to be used for local match on grant applications and for building projects. And I think what, hearing from the library and also working on other LCHIP applications, what we saw is they really want to see that community support of local funds already set aside for projects. It makes a grant application much more competitive. On slide 11 is a list of all the building projects and a cost estimate that's been put together by the Library Board of Trustees. And then at the very bottom are 2 projects that are kind of in different stages. You get the drainage improvements that were done through budget transfers and as well as some funds that were in the operating budget for the library this year. And then you've got the restoration of the windows, which is partially paid for by operating budget funds in 2025, as well as LCHIP grant funds. And we've got Library Board of Trustees here to answer any questions about any of those projects. And they've also provided just a couple of pictures of some of the things that they are looking to do in there in 12 and 13.
So another reason to get this also is because the library is a historic building, and especially with an LCHIP grant, you have to have certified preservation experts doing the work, and there's so few people who are doing things like making real wooden sash windows anymore that they're booking out like 2-3 years in advance. So it makes it complicated to encumber funds for something that is going to be a couple of years out, and then you've got grant funding complicating it even more. So it's really challenging. So I did a question about this. So the project's in process. The drainage project is already paid for, and the windows project is partially paid for, right? We're not doing the storm windows, but we're doing the windows. Correct?
Correct.
Okay, so then this top thing on here, repaving entire lot and driveway, says CIP 2026. So would that still be, if this goes through, would that, I guess my question is, what are the library's intentions if this passes? Is the money going to be spent right away? Is it going to be kept in the account, or?
So that project that's there, that's still in the operating budget. That $33,000 that's in the CIP budget, in the town's operating budget.
Okay,
So I would say if we have that in our CIP budget and it's approved by the voters, then we would use it out of the operating budget. If for some reason that were to either be cut or the budget fails, then we would have to see if the library, what they want to do.
okay.
Or if this warrant article were to pass, I would think that the library could then use that money to save for the elevator mechanical control upgrade, which is much more than
$282.
$50,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the feedback we heard last year during the budget process is that the budget committee wanted to see a list of projects
Yes.
and the cost estimates for those.
Yes. Okay. More questions? Okay.
And then on slide 14 is just, again, the article language that we will be bringing to deliberative session. And then the last of the 4 articles starts on slide 15. This is the purchase of the curbside solid waste packer from unassigned fund balance. Again, this is a $430,000 purchase, which would replace a 2012 curbside packer. This was deferred in 2024 because we were under default budget, and then in 2025 it was cut during the budget process from CIP. As you can see here, our 2 frontline packers go 40 hours a week, 52 weeks a year, between 1,000 and 12,000 barrels each per day, collecting 12.4 million pounds of trash and 4.2 million pounds of single stream annually. Because of the workload, the age, and especially the complexity, that arm going up and down over 1,000 times a day, they are out of service on a constant basis, and they're having to be worked on. That's why they have maintained 2 backline ones that they can put them in. And then it's an approximately 2-year lead time from order to delivery. And then on slides 16 and 17 is some information that the DPW director already provided the budget committee in his presentation, just kind of showing one of the trouble spots on this packer, as well as how once we hit the 9-year in life, the cost of maintenance is really skyrocketed on this particular.
Questions? Laura?
I have an overall question, actually. If this or something like this is going to be available to voters, so for the DPW, the tax rate impact is actually listed on one of the pages. Could that be done for each of these, if this is going to be something that's available?
So it's coming from unassigned fund balance. We're not collecting new taxes for it, so I don't know.
You don't mean tax rate.
There wouldn't be a tax rate impact.
You're talking about the DPW, the Teamsters one.
Well, no. Okay, maybe.
Everything but the teachers is coming from unassigned fund balance, right?
Correct. Yep.
Wait, do you see it on something else other than the Teamsters one?
No. Because we're,
If I may.
sure.
The reason why the collective bargaining agreement has that number is because that will go into the operating budget in future years. So this is an additional item that would be added to the operating budget this year. That's why you see the tax impact.
Okay.
And then the following years, it'll have additional tax impact because it's added to the operating budget in the default.
Where the other ones are the one time?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Joe?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question just holistically as well. It looks like it's an $830,000 ask to spend from the unreserved fund balance. How much would that leave? I understand it's a number through time, I get that. What percentage of the budget would be left after spending, and would that be within the select board's targeted percentage, or would it be lower than that?
We actually don't
If it was all approved?
We don't actually have that yet because we haven't seen the final numbers on what the county or school budgets are likely to be. Because you have to remember, the percentage is calculated on all of those numbers for DRA. So that's why it's not generally set until the fall. We're currently anticipating it being right at their minimum threshold.
Which is 12%.
Yes.
In your opinion, do you feel like that,
Maybe
in your
lower.
professional opinion, as the administrator, finance administrator, do you feel comfortable spending this and still having a comfortable unreserved fund balance moving forward?
Yes, again, it doesn't get the select board to their target of 16%, but it does maintain that minimum of 12%.
I think 16% is crazy, just me. So 12% though, it's gonna hit
Yep.
right at 12. Okay, thank you.
Further questions? Okay, I think we're good. Thanks, guys. So just to remind people about process, the select board brings forward warrant articles. We don't, so we're not voting to take any of these to public hearing. They automatically go to the public hearing. We'll present them, and then after the public hearing, we'll make our recommendation on supporting or not supporting that.
At that first public hearing, do we,
There's only one.
well, I guess that is where the wording of these could be altered, where we give our recommendation.
No, that is deliberative session.
So that's a deliberative
Okay.
session. The DPW contract cannot be, that one by law
Right.
cannot be amended at the first session. The other three could be amended. There are limitations on how they can be amended.
Right,
So the public hearing is simply the presentation, nothing gets changed at the public hearing.
yep,
Except we have an opportunity after the public hearing to change things if we want, but not on the warrant articles, because those are brought by the select board. That would have to be a negotiation with the select board.
okay.
They would have to agree to change those. And then everything goes to deliberative, and the voters can change things in deliberative, and we have an opportunity, if things change, to change our vote on our recommendation or not, based on whatever changes the voters make.
Got it, thank you.
Okay, so we're done. We don't have to vote on that. We can put a pin in it.
Thank you.
All right, school. Doug, Kate, whoever is coming up to talk.
Everybody got a copy of the GEA presentation?
Yep.
Great. My name is Kate McGrath. I'm the HR director for the school district, and we will be presenting on the tentative agreement reached between the Goffstown School Board and the Goffstown Education Association. And to shorten it, I will call them GEA going forward. So slide 2 just shows that on our website, there is a location highlighted here for everybody to see where the tentative agreement has been posted. It is redlined, so you can see all of the different changes that were made with respect to the language and the wage grids. I won't go into that level of detail tonight. I'm going to focus on more of the strategic language changes and the ones that had financial impact for the course of the presentation. But that's the pathway to get you to the redlined version online if needed. So we wanted to talk a little bit about who GEA is, for those who are new to this. This is a unit that is comprised of both teaching and other related service providers. It is comprised of our classroom teachers, which can range from elementary, specific subjects, tech ed, etc. Our special education teachers, unified arts, which includes PE, music, art, our related service providers like our speech pathologists, occupational therapists, and physical therapists, and then other professional credentialed or licensed positions. And those are things like our board certified behavior analysts, school counselors, school psychologists, and nurses. There are a total of 258.2 full-time equivalents currently covered by this agreement. As we move on to slide 3, our focus going into this contract was really twofold when it came to our financial goals. Number 1 was to get GEA to the 50th percentile of our benchmark towns, and those are towns that are of similar size as well as geographically located for competitive nature. Those towns are listed on slide 8 with further detail that we'll look at as we get there. And then our second priority was to get starting salaries at or above $50,000. And again, that's aligned with the goal of the 50th percentile, as well as getting to a competitive number. So the focus on both of these goals is really due to the nationwide teacher shortage to help us focus and sustain recruiting and retention efforts, as well as to provide our teaching staff with fair wages. Moving on to slide 5. So just getting a little bit into the strategic language changes. This is a 4-year tentative agreement proposal that will be before the voters. Some of the highlighted language changes, so in Article 8, our current contract for staff is 186 days in total. That is currently comprised of 181 school days and 5 teacher workshop days or professional development days. This agreement would propose to change that to 180 school days and 6 teacher workshop days. Over the last couple of years, our federal and state mandates in terms of professional development that have been given require that additional professional development time. When we look at the mandated training alone, it's the equivalent of 1 full day when we think about things like suicide prevention and know and tell, those kinds of trainings that are required by law. The additional change in that section would allow us to begin the contract year within the last 5 business days of August. It's currently the last 3 business days of August. And just depending on where the calendar falls and giving that transition for the start of the school year, for the teachers to come back for a couple of days, have a couple of professional development days before the students start, having the 5 days allows us a little bit more flexibility based on how the calendar falls. The next change that is proposed is reducing the posting period for vacancies when we get a resignation or a staff member is unable to return and we find out within 21 days of the start of the school year. So right now, there is an 8-day posting requirement, and especially when we've had positions posted, for example, if we've already had a special ed teacher position posted during the summer or in the spring, we may have a number 2 or a qualified candidate already within our pipeline that we're interested in moving forward to make sure that we can start the school year with that person on day 1. Right now, the current posting period would not allow us to do that. We would have to wait for that to be fulfilled before we could move forward with the hire. So this gives us a little bit more flexibility to make sure we're setting both the teacher and the students up for success if we have a qualified candidate in the pipeline, that 8-day posting requirement is waived. Additional changes, there was clarification added around track change effective dates when they occur prior to the first contracted teacher day, and clarification was added allowing for salary adjustments for unpaid leaves. Continuing on to slide 6. One of the changes that is being proposed is increasing the current duty-free lunch period for staff to comply with state law. So right now, the teaching staff have a lunch that is the same length as the student lunch within their building. So it could be 20, 22 minutes. There's only one building that's currently at the Department of Labor required 30-minute break for a shift that's over 5 hours. So this language would put us in compliance with the Department of Labor language, and with that change, we also need the flexibility then to change and modify school start and end times to be able to adjust for that additional break time in the middle of the day. The next round of changes occurs in the professional development article. The increased limit for professional development reimbursement for courses would increase from $1,845 to $3,692 in year 2 of this agreement. And the total available professional development reimbursement is proposed to increase from $60,000 to $120,000, again, in year 2 of the agreement. So what happens is staff are able to seek reimbursement for courses, and if they ended up taking more than their individual allotment, they would first be allowed to get reimbursed for that individual allotment, and then if there's money left over in the total pool of money available, they could seek support for additional reimbursement of funds. So that's how those 2 numbers work together. But in no event would we spend more than $120,000 on course reimbursement. Similarly, we're looking to increase the individual limit for conferences and workshops from $200 in year one to $355 in year two. So right now, we're seeing that most conferences and workshops are $400 to $500, and I think that's really limited the number of conferences and workshops that staff are going to, because they don't have that additional funding currently that they can apply to if the money is not spent. So that was another piece that we added, was they can seek the additional reimbursement if their cost goes over that $355 allotment.
So, Kate, AP training, does that qualify as professional development for AP courses?
Yes.
'Cause
Mrs.
isn't
Kohler
that
is
quite
saying
a
yes.
bit more?
Sorry?
I thought that to be trained to teach the AP courses, I thought that was a pretty hefty fee.
Good evening. It is, and there have been times where we have paid some additional money because we want to get teachers certified in certain AP classes. So if there is an administrative directed professional development thing like that, that might be something that we would consider funding. So APs, just as a good example, if students score a passing grade of 3, 4, or 5 on AP exams, there are a lot of colleges and universities that will give them credit for that. So it's a really good thing. We have quite a few AP classes, and actually we just had Mrs. Kohler, her group did a presentation at the school board meeting last night and showed our pass rate for AP tests is about 86%, which was the highest it's ever been. And we also had the most number of kids take AP tests that we've ever had. So we've had a little bit of a reduction. There's another program called Running Start, where kids can have dual enrollment credit through the community college system. That's been increasingly more challenging for us to be able to honor, because you have to have a degree in the field, you have to have a master's, you have to have certain requirements. So we've really focused on AP and being able to offer as many AP courses as we can to be able to provide those opportunities for kids. But
So-
yes, it is more expensive.
But, so right now, are teachers paying for some of that training out of
No.
their own pockets? The
No,
district is covering that for them?
The district pays for that, correct.
Okay, and it's all in St. Johnsbury too, so there's housing costs and,
And there's a whole process for, yes, it's basically like a week or so. Is it a week?
It's about a week, but
Yeah.
there's different options now. St. Johnsbury isn't the only option.
okay.
There also are some online options as well, so depending on, for example, if you're an art teacher going for AP training, the choices are much different versus a math teacher who's going for that.
Okay,
But the district pays for that.
okay, good. Thank you.
Okay, so moving on to slide 7. So the strategic change, language changes continued. So we made a number of changes within our leave sections in the sick bank. So one of the big ones with regards to sick bank, so sick bank is where staff can contribute days that can then later be requested by staff who have run out of accrued leave time in the event they have a major illness or injury. So we added clarifying language around new employees being able to join because there is a maximum on how many sick days can go into the bank. And we didn't want new employees to be penalized just because the bank itself is at that maximum. And then secondly, clarification was added that an employee cannot collect sick bank in lieu of long-term disability. So the district has, as part of this master agreement, a long-term disability insurance plan for staff covered by this agreement, and they could not collect sick bank at 100% in lieu of the long-term disability benefits. And then the last notable changes are regarding our leaves. So there, if you go to the redlined agreement, you'll see that there's a lot of language impact in this section. The major focus was to combine the articles because they were separated into multiple articles, all about leaves. Language was added to address excessive absences through a committee that would be formed in the fall of this year. The use of sick leave has been broadened to allow for household family members up to an annual accrual cap. There was clarifying language added to special purpose leave, which are often sometimes referred to as personal leave days. And the section was renamed life event leave. And there was also clarifying language added to the unpaid leaves and sabbaticals supporting benefit continuation provisions that are already in place. So those are all of the language highlighted changes. The next slide on page 8 refers to the benchmarking that I mentioned earlier. So what this chart is showing you is on the bottom, you can see all of the listed towns that we benchmark against. And the first row of data shows the 50th percentile for those towns for this year's FY26 contracts. The first numbers in white are the starting wages for each of the tracks. And to the right, in kind of the shaded light maroon pinkish color, those are the ending wages, the top step, step 18, 50th percentile numbers on our benchmarking. Below that is the Goffstown numbers for those same beginning and ending wages. And then you can see that we range from as much as 9.5% below the 50th percentile right now on bachelor's 30 track, down to 2.2% on the bachelor's max. So a little bit of a range, but that shows how far below the 50th percentile we currently are against our benchmarking. So that was what we really focused on and started with the wages.
Brian?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Could you help me understand what the 15 and 30 represents? I forget what that represents.
Yeah, absolutely. So you have your bachelor's degree, no additional credits, then 15 credits earned
Okay.
beyond the bachelor's, 30 credits, same after your
Okay.
master's.
And as a follow-up, what is a credit?
College course credit.
Oh,
So
the
degree,
college credit.
yep,
Okay.
college credit.
Sam?
How many credits until someone gets their master's after they have their bachelor's?
It depends on the program that they're in. So a lot of them, I would say average, and I might defer to Jared in the college system. 36 is typical. But speech pathologists, for example, their program could be upwards of 60. So it varies based on program.
Okay, I guess I guess it's all about the program, right? So
Yes.
if you had 30 credits after your bachelor's, it's not like then you were getting a master's at that point.
You'd need the 6 more
You need
credits,
6 more credits because you gotta get to
hypothetically.
36. Okay,
Right.
awesome, thank you.
So this is different than looking at a state average.
Yes, this is targeted benchmarking.
Okay, so we used to always compare it to the state average. Do we have any idea where we are compared to the average teacher pay in the state of New Hampshire?
I know we put that in our budget presentations. I don't have that number with me.
It's available on iReport. I can find it.
Thank you.
The only reason I would think that I like this a little bit more is because a person who lives in Goffstown and is teaching is probably driving to one of these places.
Right.
And vice versa, a person who lives in one of these places might be willing to drive to Goffstown, but somebody who lives in, Pittsburgh.
Right.
Or they're not gonna drive here.
Right, that's true. I'm not dismissing this, I'm just also saying that's another number by which we have historically sort of marked how we're paying our teachers. That's why I'm curious where it falls within that range. Other questions about this so far?
Oh, actually, yeah. I do
Peter?
have it. So the benchmarking in terms of that BA plus 15, BA plus 30, that's pretty standard across, like if I was to look at other schools, is that pretty much how everyone does it? I just don't know.
I can't speak to how other districts
Yes.
do it.
All very, very similar. And all the contracts would be available on the PELRB contract if you wanted to go look, Peter. So
Gotcha.
all school district contracts are posted online.
Well, I just wanted to make sure, obviously, because we're we're comparing the numbers, so I just wanted to make sure, are they like possibly on like a different track than we are?
No, I misunderstood your question.
Okay,
Sorry
got
about
it.
that. Doug clarified for me. So
It was
this,
truly my ignorance, honestly.
I misunderstood. My apologies. So what Brian was speaking to, this information comes directly off of a state report. So every spring, we're required to upload our numbers that are in our master agreements, and every district does the same, and these are the tracks that are reported.
Okay.
Yep.
So I can answer the question about how we compare. So I am on the New Hampshire Education Department's website, and I went to iPlatform, and they have a whole series of reports that are available. And when I select Goffstown, the average teacher salary in Goffstown, according to the state, is $58,794. And the state average for 2025 was $69,531. So if
So
we
this-
wanted to compare to the state.
We're 11,000 under the state average.
Yep.
Okay.
And in 2024, it was 66,000, in 2020, the state average. And in 2023, the state average was 63,000, and Goffstown was 54. So in 2023, we were a little closer, and we've gotten further and further away.
That was my second question.
Yep.
Which direction are we moving?
And really, if I could, the one piece that I would really ask the Budget Committee to consider is there is a national teacher shortage. We are competing for teachers in ways that we never have before, and we have to have a competitive salary. So just as an anecdotal comment that I would share with you, pre-COVID, if we had an elementary school opening, I would get 300 applications, piles of them. We could instantly go, we're not going to look at anyone who doesn't have special ed and regular ed certification. We're not going to look at anybody who doesn't have specialized reading training or things like that. And now, we can barely fill these positions. So in the course of about 5 or 6 years, the world has changed, and our ability to retain staff and recruit has been the biggest challenge. And if I were to predict, this will be the biggest challenge continuously moving forward. So what we're looking here is we're trying to get 50-50. Starting teachers, all at 50 grand, and everybody else, 50th percentile. That's what we're shooting for. Any questions on the state salaries or any of that? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so moving past the benchmarking on slide 8, so then we're going to talk about what the wage increases are that are proposed in this agreement. So year one was a little bit complicated, and actually the opposite of what Derek just described with the town CBA. So we started by adding 5% to the top step of our grid, step 18. So depending on whether you're looking at the box, it's the bottom of the box, but the top step 18 got a 5% adjustment. And then we actually did a smaller decrement in between our steps. So right now there's 3% in between our steps, and under the proposed agreement, year one will be a 2.5% increase between steps. And that allowed us to bring the starting wages up without adding steps. Okay, so 5% to step 18, and then the grid was sort of collapsed, bringing the step increases to 2.5%. Year two, a 3% adjustment is made to the grid, and in all 4 years of the contract, employees move one step if it's available. The cap to the bachelor's track is removed, so right now, there is a cap where if you're on the bachelor's track, you can't move beyond step 13. So regardless of how many years you've been teaching, you have for experience, if you're on that track, 13 is as high as you can go. There used to be motivation to get folks to move over to take additional credits. We have found that we are now losing candidates to that because other districts don't have that same cap, and teachers are not getting the full experience credit that they've earned over years and are not willing to take a significant pay cut to come without getting that credit. So the bachelor's cap is removed. And then in years 3 and 4, again, a 3% adjustment is made to the grid, and you can see each year I've provided what that average increase is, both in dollars and percent.
Joe?
I have a number of questions, but I want to, this one I want to ask right now is the cap to the bachelor's track. If there was somebody that was capped, are they moving up corresponding the amount of years that they were capped?
Yes.
So that could be a significant pay raise if they
Yes.
are. Do we have an idea of the number of teachers that were capped at the bachelor's that now maybe they have 5 years they were capped or 10 years they were capped? I mean, that seems like a significant thing to put in the contract.
It is, and again, so when we're focusing on recruiting, we're losing candidates, not being able to give them that credit for that, and then the retention. So there are currently 11 employees that are capped that would move from 13 to 18. When this language goes, it would be 12 next year that would move. So the 11 right now, I can't speak for certain, Joe, if all of them
Right.
go from 13 to 18, but there are 11 that are currently capped at step 13.
I'm just looking at that's a $10,000 raise.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, I think another way to look at it, though, too, is that it's been a savings for the district for years, because this isn't something that most districts do. So most districts don't have a cap on their bachelors, so they would have been moving up each year as well. So for the past however many years, the district has been saving money by having the cap, but in order to kind of retain those teachers, the cap doesn't make sense.
That's one way to look at it. Thank you.
I have a question about the year one, and maybe I'm just not processing this correctly. The percentage increase, so the year one average increase, that last line in the year one section is 5,600 or 8.89%. That percentage is throwing me off, because if the top step is being adjusted 5% and everybody else is 2.5%, how do some people end up at 8.89%? Shouldn't the actual number be probably somewhere in like the 4% range?
Yeah, so if you were just purely doing the step increase, then that logic would apply. But what we're doing is, right now, for example, in 25-26, the starting wage on bachelor's step one is $44,002, okay?
Okay.
So by taking the steps from 3% to 2.5%, the starting wage in 26-27 for bachelors is going to go to $50,186. And the people who are on step one right now, next year would be on step two. So they're going to go from 44,002 to 51,441. So their increase is larger than just the 2.5% value of a step.
Okay, so in the description, then maybe there's a line missing here to explain that the bottom of the whole table is moving up? Or am I just reading this wrong? So the top's getting an adjustment, right? They're getting that
Correct.
5%.
Yep.
Everybody else is getting 2.5, but the whole table is moving up to get to that 50,000, to that starting level.
Correct.
So there's a whole, everybody's getting a boost?
Yes. I mean, we're effectively changing the grid. So again, back to that goal of the starting wage being at 50,000.
But then that means that 5% and that 2.5% isn't a real number, because everybody's been lifted some percentage amount to begin with.
Yeah, those aren't the numbers unless you're on step 18. So if you're on step 18 right now, you get 5%.
Plus, that's it, it's just flat 5%, that's it?
Correct. Correct.
Okay,
Everybody else is going to get whatever the percent increase is from the current wage grid to the new wage grid. And it's, the rest of the numbers are not increasing by 2.5%. We're decreasing the amount between the steps
okay,
in an effort to bring up the starting wages to the 50,000 target number.
okay,
The slope is changing.
okay. All right, I think I'm kind of getting this. Joe?
I have another question. So I had asked Doug for some data regarding where our teachers are on our steps. And it looks like almost half of them, or 40% of them, are at the 18th step. So it seems to me like over half, or almost half the teachers are getting 5% raise next year. on the steps.
109 are at step 18 right now. out of
Right,
the
that's gonna put
258.
them, by the end of the contract, that's gonna put them almost at $100,000 a year.
Well, they're not getting 5% every year.
Right, but
So the contract is going to cap out the highest wage in the final proposed contract
is 98,578.
if you have your doctorate and 18 years or more of experience.
Okay, but even, I mean, I'm looking, it's like 94, 95, 97. It's pretty
Sure, so
consistently
it
putting them in
starts,
the upper 90s.
it starts at 83,000 if you have 83,446 if you have your bachelor's, and it moves over to if you have your doctorate at 98,578.
Okay.
So what level are most of our teachers actually at? They have master's degrees or bachelor's, or, because there's very few teachers who have doctorates, I think, in
Yep.
the district.
That's accurate. I have that. So we have 44.6 on bachelor's, 12 on bachelor's plus 15, 18 on bachelor's plus 30, 137 on master's, so that's where our biggest group of employees is. 17 on master's plus 15, 17 on master's plus 30, and 12.6 FTEs on the doctorate CAGs.
So those credits, those additional master's plus 15 plus 30, though, are they any college credits, or are they discipline-specific college credits, or?
So, the ones that we look at and pay for have to be related to their professional development, their goals. But staff could have earned other credits that may not specifically, if I'm a math teacher, be a math credit. They could have a broader umbrella of professional development.
So, but those would still count. So if I'm a
If they
math
were a
teacher and I
college
say, boy, I'm going to take a class on Chaucer because I think it sounds interesting, I could do that and get, eventually, if I had enough credits, I could get a bump for it.
You could.
Okay.
But I mean, how,
Well, nobody's taking a class on Chaucer, but.
well, right, but I guess I'm saying that like, if,
Madam Chair and I probably would. I would take one.
I guess what I'm wondering is like, when I think of someone, like a specific math teacher, right? They might take classes in like business, like specific business math, right? It's because that's the technical term at school. And I would think that they wouldn't be taking random classes, even if they did. The amount of money that they would be spending on a class not related to their discipline probably isn't going to equal out to the payback that they're about to get from their wage.
And at 3 credits a class, you've got to take
Right.
multiple courses to get to that next
Yeah.
track change.
Okay. But if it was in your discipline, if a math teacher is taking whatever advanced calculus or whatever, then the district would pay for that and they would get the credits. Could pay for it.
At least a portion of it.
Okay. Okay. Additional questions? Okay.
Okay, so then we're on to slide 10. So this is the updated benchmarking with those proposed wage increases. So the top box shows the starting wages in each track. And you can see bachelor's, we would now be within about 0.5%, 0.6% of the 50th percentile, up to the master's track being a little over at 3.8% over the 50th percentile. And then on the top end of the wages, step 18, you can see, again, we're within about 0.5% on most. The tracks just vary, so you can see, based on the benchmarking, how districts have applied increases and what those increases are. It's not perfect that they're all the same within the 50th percentile, but that's where we would land with the proposed wage increases against next year's benchmarking. So the last change that we'll talk about is the co-curricular stipends are being proposed for a 5% in year 1 and a 3% in years 2, 3, and 4. In the current master agreement, this 4-year agreement, the co-curricular stipends did not increase at all. So our coaches have not received any pay increases for the many, many hours of work that they do. And I shouldn't say just coaches, it's our advisors as well. For that work. So those are the same proposed increases as to the grid for the co-curricular stipends. And the last slide on page 12 outlines the projected costing. So I didn't put in the warrant article language, and we'll be sure to do that for the deliberative presentation. But what you're looking at are the total costs. So year 1 is anticipated to be $1,952,009. It should be noted that on the warrant language, there will be offsetting to the general fund. The grant funding that gets applied is $59,618. So the positions that are attributable to the grant will be reduced from that $1,952,000. And then there's also going to be a reduction of $280,000 as a revenue projection due to New Boston tuition. So those two figures will come off of the $1,952,009. Joe?
Okay, I have a number of questions. The first one is, how many teachers choose to participate in the GEA?
So they don't have to share that number with us?
So you don't have any idea of how many teachers, well, no, because in the contract it says if they elect to pay the fee for the union. So you do have the data.
We don't collect their dues unless they ask us to, and in the last year or two, they've actually stopped doing the payroll deduction.
Okay.
And even if we had the payroll deduction data, that doesn't mean that somebody's not paying directly to GEA.
Okay.
So I do not have an actual number of members.
I'd just be curious to know if it's not a huge percentage or not. I also kind of wanted to get a general idea of, during your negotiating process, if the district at all wanted to move to more of a merit-based system for paying some of our teachers. I would kind of like to see personally, like, more of a focus on student outcomes in teacher pay. I think that should be something that the district should look at, not just paying or having like a pay increase just to have a pay increase. Like, I want to see like more like correlation with student outcomes. Was there any sort of discussion? I know you can't necessarily talk to me about everything said in a teacher like collective bargaining discussion, but can you talk to me a little bit about if there was any discussion around merit-based performance?
Not within this negotiation. So we have, over the years, talked about the merits of merit-based pay within a collective bargaining agreement like this. So there are a lot of challenging factors that contribute to why that is not a part of the agreement at this point. You have positions that do vastly different responsibilities that are covered by this collective bargaining agreement. So trying to create those metrics and outcomes and what that looks like is probably one of the biggest challenges. But our focus of this agreement was really about getting our people up to the 50th percentile and getting those starting wages up to the 50,000.
Okay. And I guess another question is regarding student outcomes relative to a bachelor's teacher and a master's teacher. Is there a difference?
We don't have any data on that.
So why are we paying them different if we don't have data on student outcomes? I understand because they went to get a degree, I get that, but like, what else? Like if we're student focused in this district, I'd like to see some data that shows that, oh, we want to pay our master's teachers more because studies show that students perform better when they have a master's professor or teacher.
And that's exactly what it is, Joe. So the more training, so you have to understand, we're in the education business. So we want not only our kids to continue to be educated and advance, but all of our employees. All of us as an organization, we're all learning, we're all growing. So we want our teachers to keep taking courses. Whether we should pay different for bachelor's track or master's track, this is a longstanding tradition in public education across the country. This bachelor's, I appreciated Brian's question, the bachelor's 15, bachelor's 30, some version of that exists in most states and in most school districts. There's a lot of interest in going to a merit-based pay system, but it is, as Kate said, it is complicated. And there aren't any good examples that I could tell you in the state of New Hampshire.
Okay.
I would think, I mean, my experience is in the private sector that almost everybody receives higher pay for higher certification and more education. Somebody with a PhD is going to be paid more than somebody with a master's degree, I think, in any field.
Well, the idea is that they would perform better and there would be, but, we have metrics to measure student performance, right? But
Well-
I mean, any job you would line up your pay not only with your degree, but also your performance.
Yeah, but most jobs don't have metrics. Do you have
don't
metrics in your
automatically
job?
get a pay increase in the private sector unless you're performing to a certain
Right, but
degree.
that's not necessarily, that doesn't boil down, the evaluation of your performance doesn't necessarily boil down to metrics, into numbers, quantifiable numbers
Right.
in the private industry. I mean, in fact, I can think of very few places other than sales that it does. So I'm not sure, just to illustrate that point, I mean, I am all for merit pay. I am totally there with you, but I would have really big issues if it was tied to student outcomes. I mean, I would fight that tooth and nail. And as somebody who taught at the college level for 10 years, it's not my fault if my students are idiots. I mean,
Well, and
you do the best you
unfortunately,
can
sometimes
with
what
what you
happens
get.
We put the more challenging kids with the better, more experienced teachers. So it's definitely something that I'm interested in to a point, but I think at this point, well, maybe a future negotiation. Maybe a future one.
Thank you. Well said.
I'm not trying to shoot you down. I didn't mean to
No,
like
no,
cut
that's
you
fine.
off. So I do have a question. Why a 4-year contract? That seems kind of unusual for us.
The last one was also 4 years, so.
Was it?
Yeah. Actually, when I started in 2008, we had a 5-year contract. So the last contract that Darrell Lockwood did was a 5-year contract. And then when that expired, we went 3 years without a contract, no contract for 3 years. And then we did, I think, a 3, a 4, a 4. So we've done a couple of different versions, but we do like a 3 or a 4 year contract. I think it provides more stability.
Okay.
And we kind of thought 5 was too far.
So my other question then is about the days. You said that's 186 days contract. Now that the state doesn't care about seat time anymore, are districts rethinking the number of days in their
I'm not.
contracts?
So there are communities that have chosen, so the state requires us to have 950 instructional hours for elementary and 990 hours for high school. School districts used that as an opportunity to shorten their year, so they didn't have to pay for busing, they didn't have to pay to heat buildings, they didn't have other operational costs. And I don't think that's a good approach. We have stuck with the 180 days. So there are a lot of communities, I think Manchester's a good example, 175 days. So our kids go 180 days. So unapologetically, I think we need a longer school day, a longer school year. If we want our kids to compete on a global marketplace, you're not going to catch up by going slower and less. Because the rest of the world is hitting the gas and they're pushing hard. I would have liked to have seen this be a year-round school model. I know I'm in minor territory here, but absolutely. 180 days is not enough.
Okay.
Additional questions about the teacher contract? Brian, did you get your, I was going to ask if you got your questions answered, because I know you had some in advance, so.
No, but I wanted to get back to the contract on year one. You mentioned there was 2 reductions, potential, like a New Boston tuition.
Oh, yes.
And what was the second one?
Grant funded,
Grant funding.
yeah.
So that would be like the IDEA grant, the special education grant. So if we have teachers that are paid through that, we would take that off because we have corresponding revenue.
Do we know the reductions?
Yeah.
Or that's forthcoming?
Which-
No, so the grant funding reduction is $59,618. And the reduction due to the New Boston tuition revenue will be $280,000.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or discussion about this? Jared, do you want to make sure you have an opportunity to?
No, policy discussions were done by our superintendent, which I appreciate, so I was just going to reinforce exactly what he said.
Mr. Talbot was also part of the negotiating team, so he's got quite a bit of experience with this contract.
Okay. Okay. So if nothing else, then we are moving on.
All right, so we'll end with something a little bit simpler. We're down to one page, but it does have a front and a back. So as you can see on the front, we have our capital reserve fund history, which started in 2019. And as we go through the years, as far as adding money in and then taking out money for projects, you can see with where we're projected to kind of finish up some projects, as well as reserving money for the GHS turf replacement, that we have kind of an expected available balance of $108,000. So if we flip it over, you can see that what we're going to be asking for is $300,000. That's the same amount that we asked for this previous year, and you can see where we're highlighting what projects would make up a decent chunk of that. So we start with $108,000, we add our $300,000, now we take another yearly reserve for the high school turf of $50,000. We have several doors, which we were able to walk through on the tour, and several months ago at the high school that need to be replaced. A lot of those are double exterior doors, which are not cheap, so we're around $131,000 there. We have some smoke detectors that are coming of age at the high school, around $20,000 there. Firewall, which is IT related, and that's handling all internet traffic in all the buildings. So that is end of life, where it won't be supported after June 30th, 2026. So that has to be replaced. Good news is that it does have a matching grant with E-rate matching grant, which would cover almost 50% of that. Then we can see also that there is a network switching, which has been done at all the other schools. So that's handling non-Wi-Fi, non-telephone traffic. So video cameras, Promethean boards, copiers, things like that. That will also qualify for the matching grant. This is not all of the projects. Moving forward, we're definitely going to look to maybe ask for more than $300,000 because as you look at the bottom of the page, you can see there are quite a bit of projects, and some of them would add up quickly, whether that be drainage work, roof replacement or repairs. There's a lot of parking lot or driveway overlay, but because it hasn't been overlaid, it's more of that reclamation of it, which is, as we know, more expensive. And there's just several other things that are part of the CIP that we'd be looking or needed to be done within the next several years. But this is where we see the majority of the $300,000 going to that would be asked for. And it would be from unassigned fund balance, is how it's written.
Questions? So when we did that tour in the fall, I was under the impression that none of that was going to be requested this year. So now the doors are being requested, or they're not being requested, but they're on the list to use from the CRF. But none of the rest of that project, that was like an expansion of the baseball field, and I'm trying to remember the other pieces of it.
Yeah.
There was parking
Clearing of
lot.
the parking lot
Extra parking.
expansion. None of that is on this list, or it's
It-
just the doors?
It's not, It's not on the list as of now. It's not going to supersede the doors. So as we worked with the school board, we really wanted to focus on safety issues first. So that's where the doors, the fire detectors, the firewall, and then it's just needed for the network switching. So there is still that challenge as far as parking here, as well as the field. I think the field definitely needs more conversation within the community as well, as far as what makes the most sense. We don't want to rush something like that because it is an investment and it is something that can be used not just by the high school, but by the community. And then parking is something that I think we can look to as if we figure out where the field might go, that might help us to kind of decide where parking might go as well. But I think we got to explore a dirt lot, like how cheap we can do parking as well, extra parking at the high school. So that again is going to take some time to kind of explore those options as well.
Okay, Brian?
If I can just add to that, we cannot use the capital reserve fund for expansion. So it can't be putting a new field in, putting a new parking lot in. It's only for existing capital assets. So we wouldn't use it for, the kind of the idea of expanded parking. We wouldn't use this fund ever for that purpose.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Allison?
I guess I'm kind of looking for clarification. How do the firewall and the network switching then fall into that?
Because those are things we have now. So if we have something that we need to replace, that's okay. But if we wanted to do a new program, a new expansion that we're going to be bringing in something different, then that wouldn't be an existing capital asset.
Right, but those are considered part of like the facility, even though
Yeah.
it seems like they're
Yep.
more IT, not
Yes.
facility, when you're looking at some of the other things like stairs and doors and.
So IT, safety, and facilities are all commingled in this fund. So we equally use them for IT projects, large IT projects, server replacements, stuff like that. But if we expanded and we brought in new technology of some sort, we wouldn't use this fund for that purpose. We have contemplated over the years creating a capital reserve fund just for IT, because as I've shared at this table for the last several years, we are behind. We're trying really hard, but we have a lot of old equipment, a lot of old infrastructure, and we do need to continue to make significant investments in our IT department for staffing as well as equipment for kids. But we're not there yet, but down the road, that could be something that the school board considers as an additional capital reserve fund for the purpose of technology.
Additional questions? for the capital reserve fund? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to old business, we have the village water precinct. So, Brian, sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Before we move forward, and I don't mind taking assumptions, but since we went through the town and school, I guess before the 15th public hearing, I wanted to see if the town and school can provide the median household financial impact in percentage and dollar amount to us before the 15th on any related default proposal and any kind of appropriate warrant articles.
Yep, we can do that.
Yeah.
What amount for house value?
So we're using 416,000.
So we'll use the same as
the
Derek
town.
and Danielle used?
Yep.
Yeah,
You good with that, Doug?
Yep.
all right, thank you.
Yep, that's a good call. Okay, Mark, and if Lee wants to step up as well.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we did make changes to the budget, but I want to jump to, I'm going to skip the first page and jump to the second page, the expense budget. That's really where we have made the changes. And we've added two columns. We've added a balance column to the 2025 budget. So you can see what money has been spent, what money that was overspent, all the way down the column. And then we've added a net change to the 2026 budget. Those are the changes we have made to the 2026 budget. And then if you jump to page 3, I just want to note one item. at the very bottom, if you eliminate line items 4901 and 4915, that shows you our actual operating budget. For 2025, it was $680,507. The proposed for 2026 is going to be $702,108, and that adds up to like a 3% increase.
First of all, thank you for investing the time to flesh this out for us. I think it's really helpful.
Okay.
So thank you for doing that.
Yep.
For, if you did it or whoever did it at the water precinct, it's appreciated.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, are there more points you want to discuss on this individually, or?
I don't. I just kind of wanted to walk through it real quickly. And if you want to go through line item by line item, we can do that, you know.
Okay. Committee
Oh,
members?
I'm sorry, let me note one thing. In the executive salaries, we did remove the stipends that was requested. And I know Joe had a comment about line 4335, water treatment. And you can see what the balance is of 2025 and what we have decreased it to in the 2026 budget.
So I'm going to give everybody a minute or two to look this
Sure.
over, because we just got it today. I know some of us came straight from work, so, sure.
Line 4326, Sewage Mountain Laurel. Why, what is that? Why doesn't the sewer department pay for that?
No,
Say the name.
so Mountain Laurel Estates is Magnolia Drive on Shirley Hill Road.
Okay.
And the water precinct takes care of both the water and the sewage in that development. Just for that one development.
So do they pay additional fees?
They do for sewage, correct. Yeah, it's $600 a year.
It's a septic system, correct?
Yeah. There's 5 pumping chambers and 5 septic fields within the whole development.
Okay,
So they pay $150 per quarter.
okay. Peter?
Can you remind me for water services, if there was something that we were looking at in the future for this year? It looks like service repairs is one of the big ones that we're looking at increasing. Was there something specific that's causing that? Because it looks like it's a little bit underspent this year, but we're going up on the budget 11,000 for next year. Yeah, was there something in particular that they were looking to do in terms of service repairs or anything that was gonna account for some of that cost?
Yes, the federal government's got a lead and copper rule out, and we have to start, we don't have any lead service lines, but we're mandated by the federal government to check up to 20% of them in the next 10 years. So we're gonna dig up 20% of our water services to confirm that they're not lead.
But we know they're not lead.
We know they're not lead, but we still have to confirm it.
So we have roughly 1,200 services, we have to dig up 20% of them.
So that's specifically coming out of
It's
these?
just, it's in their
water
contract
services.
labor and all that stuff. That's what that stuff's for, repairs or anything like that we have to do.
Can we just dig up the same 20% as before?
They've already picked the certain addresses and stuff.
You just pick
It's
the
fine.
same ones every time. We're like, definitely not lead.
The federal government gets involved in some things, which throws us off.
It's trying to be helpful.
They're not giving us any extra money, so.
It's trying to be helpful. It's not.
So I'm sorry if we already covered this, the capital outlay line, the 4901,
Yep.
it's really underexpended. If I'm reading this correctly, right? The budget was 6.4 million, we've spent 1.6 million, 1.7 million, and there's a fair amount left. Now, is that, am I not reading this correctly?
You are reading it correctly. That's for, one of the projects in there is for our upper dam removal. There's $1 million grant money that we have to carry in our budget till we spend it, and the project's been delayed. Actually, it's gonna start probably in the next month or so.
Okay, so those funds are encumbered?
They're not, we don't really encumber them, but they're shifted over to
They're
26.
shifted over.
Okay, so it just gets moved over, so the net change of 1.8 million. So, wait a minute then, so, but now we have 8 million budgeted for this coming year.
Yeah, one of the projects was our dam, and the other project we're doing is, we're doing upgrades to our well system. It's a new well, treatment facility. We're in the engineering process of that. We've received funds from the New Hampshire SRF funds, and we just keep carrying them year to year until they are expended.
Okay,
And that's why we show the net change down at the bottom of what our actual budget is.
Right.
right. Okay. Okay. Are there additional questions? Joe, I can see you itching to raise your hand.
No, I was just gonna move it.
Oh, okay.
Move it.
Oh,
had no
this is a vote.
Yes, this will be a vote.
Are you
Okay.
ready?
I got everybody's name in the wrong order. It's fine.
You can go.
Okay, I moved to send the Goffstown Village Water Precinct public hearing.
It doesn't actually go to public hearing, sorry,
To
time out.
warrant.
It does.
Oh, it does?
It does.
Oh, it goes to their public hearing.
No, it goes to your public hearing.
Really?
Grassmere.
I remember
has their
doing
own
that.
special one.
Oh, all right. I don't remember doing that.
All right, send.
Okay,
My
Water.
motion stands.
yes, sorry.
Budget,
Brian seconds.
public.
Do you want to speak to your motions,
Nope.
either of you? Is there any further discussion on this? All those in favor, say aye. Raise hands, we'll do it that way, just to make it faster. All right, any opposed? Any abstentions? There you go, it's unanimous. All right, thank you both.
You already voted in favor, right?
Yes, he did. Everybody voted.
Said unanimous.
Yes, unanimous.
Sometimes you do a little secret abstention.
We're easing you back in. Okay, so next up, we have school board and select board representatives updates. So Jared.
Oh, okay. For those of you that did not know or might have misheard me yesterday, we did reduce the default SAU budget at our SAU area agreement meeting. So it's going to roughly be a $13,000 reduction in our default budget, which of course will carry over to our proposed budget. So when we get to public hearing, I'll make that amendment to reduce it by
Oh,
13
if only
grand.
you hadn't made a motion to
Oh, hell no.
restrict reconsideration. We
Hell
could've just
no.
Done it here.
Hell no, but
And
I want to
had
get the
it
exact
easier.
number. Unfortunately, Doug left. But I wanted to share that and cascade it to the team that, the SAU budget did reduce, which affects our default and our proposed.
Okay. Thank you. Any other updates?
That is all.
Okay. Richard?
Yeah, so other than the warrant articles that you already saw tonight, something that we took, well, we didn't take action on it yet at the last meeting, but something that we set a public hearing for at our last meeting that has impact more on the revenue side is we're looking at raising our EMS billing rates in accordance with the new state law. I don't know what the current is, but it would be potentially raised to, is it 3.5 times the Medicare rate?
3.25.
3.25, thank you. 3.25 times the Medicare rate. I think that's all I have.
Okay. Great. All right, school and town liaisons. Well, the school liaison has left, so I guess they don't have an update. Town liaison, Derek, is there anything you want to add? So can I ask, have there any other warrant articles been submitted by petition that have any impact on appropriations?
We have not received any appropriation petition warrant articles.
Okay. Okay, and the deadline for that is?
Tuesday, the 13th, close of business.
Okay. Okay.
If we receive any, we will send it to the budget committee. It will be certified by the supervisors of the checklist per se.
Okay. Okay. All right. Then the next thing to talk about is just the public hearing, which is next Thursday, the 15th in the theater. And what time does it start? Is it 6 or 7?
6.
6. Okay. 6 o'clock in the theater. Be there, be square. And then we will, immediately after the public hearing, we will meet and finalize our recommendations on all of these things. Peter's going to be presenting the town budget, Allison is going to be presenting the school budget, and I'm trying to think if there's anything else related to that.
Does that include all the warrant articles associated with it?
I was going to ask other people to present the warrant articles. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. So, if you're interested in presenting, please let me know. I think that's it. We just all have to be there at 6 o'clock and ready to listen.
I'm sorry, do we have dates for the town deliberative?
We do. It's February 2nd and 3rd, which is a Monday and a Tuesday at 7 p.m. In the theater? In the theater. Which one's which? I can't remember.
The school is on the 2nd, we're on the 3rd. Snow date is the 4th and 5th.
Okay.
Kind of like a little Groundhog Day. Right? It's like it starts on the 2nd and then it like
Repeats on the 3rd.
7 PM, is that what it is?
7 p.m.
That's good.
Yes, and I just want to remind, I mean, I
I
know
forgot
you
what day
guys
it was.
who've done this for a while know, but especially for the new people, we are required to come to the deliberative session because if anything changes at the deliberative session, we need to meet immediately afterwards and redo our recommendation. So, okay, is there any other business to come before the committee, or the commission? All right, then,
To adjourn.
motion to adjourn, is there a second?
I would love to second.
Samantha's gonna second. I'm sorry, Mark.
was really
Beat you
going
to
for
it.
it that time.
I'm controlling the.
All right, all those in
okay.
favor, raise your hands. Any opposed? All right, we're done.
We are